favorite 90s horror movie.
How's it going, fam? Boogie and Vaderface here with you again for another 90s review, and we got some Halloween fun here with you guys this week.
So we're going to start off going from 5 to 1. So Vader, what's your number 5?
For my number 5, I'm starting off strong. My big one was Candyman. I love that original 1990s Candyman with Tony Todd in it. It was an amazing film. And you know what? If you agree with me, smash that like down below, man. Slam that like for us. It's a small thing for you guys, but it's a huge thing for us at the 90s Nostalgia Review. But I'm loving up on Candyman. That was a huge one for me growing up, and I think it was just really well done. What do you think?
I remember the first time I watched Candyman, I was 8 years old and I was at a babysitter's house. I don't remember having nightmares from it, but my parents swear up and down that after that I had nightmares, because I remember my babysitter got a tongue lashing for letting me watch that movie. But I feel like letting kids watch horror movies in the 90s, I felt like all the little kids had seen all the horror movies by the time I was in elementary school. Like, all the kids talked about it, so I feel like it was a little bit more the norm.
Oh, and it definitely was. Like, the thing that stuck out for me was that scene where she crawls through the hole in the wall, and then on the other side is the Candyman graffiti.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just that whole schoolyard tell of, like, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman.
Nobody wanted to do it in the mirror in the bathroom. Nobody.
So that was always huge for me. And plus that idea, we've seen the meme probably 1,000 times. Tony Todd, for every sting he took, man, he took 23 stings. He got $1,000 per sting. So, hey, I hope he definitely renegotiated his contract on this new one, man.
Is he starring in the new one?
Yeah, he's as far as I know, he's in the new one.
Oh, that's awesome. I haven't seen it yet, and I'm really excited to see that movie.
Well, so what about for you? What was your number 5 favorite?
So
Halloween?
for my number 5, I'm going Interview with a Vampire. Now, I know not everybody's going to consider that a horror movie. You can go ahead and smash that dislike button. But honestly, I think it encompasses everything that makes a good horror movie. The cast was amazing. Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt are some of my favorite actors of all time. And then you top it off with Antonio Banderas and Kirsten Dunst. Antonio Banderas' character was supposed to be a teenage French vampire, but we'll let it slide because it's Antonio Banderas. But that movie's classic. It's the prequel to my favorite book of all time, The Vampire Lestat. And I mean, the movie doesn't give you the kind of conventional scares that a normal horror movie would, but it's chilling nonetheless. And Anne Rice, the rights to that movie were actually bought before the book was even published. John Travolta was going to star in it. But by the time that they actually made it 20 years later, they picked Tom Cruise. And Anne Rice was super pissed about it. But after the movie came out, she wrote him an apology letter because, I mean, obviously he did a really good job.
Wow.
And she has all the movie rights to all her books now for the whole Vampire Chronicles, so she's hoping to do something like Game of Thrones-esque with it.
Nice.
Sick.
That'll be really cool. You know, I got to go on the opposite side. I wasn't a big fan of Interview with Vampire. I love the movie itself, but I was always a hack and slasher guy with horror movies growing up, and so it was hard for me to get into that one. But that said, it did make me start loving Brad Pitt as an actor growing up, because I really had only seen him before that in Thelma and Louise. So
he didn't even want to do the role. He was pissed that he had to play second fiddle to Tom Cruise, so he had asked to get out of it, but the producers told him, you can give us $40 million and you don't have to star in it. So he said, no, I'll do it. But his performance was really good in it. So,
nice.
Like I said, the whole cast did a great job.
Nice. So now let's go ahead and move on to our number 4 spot here. And you know what? Bouncing back, mine's a kind of a comedical one. My number 4 spot is the Leprechaun. And we're talking the whole series as a whole. Leprechaun is just amazing. It is so meta on what it aware of what it is and its audience, and it knows what to do. It's the cornier the better. I don't know if anybody's seen Leprechaun into Hood. That one's
amazing.
Is
that an official sequel?
Yes, as far as I know,
thought it was
it's
just
canon.
Like some random.
They even have Leprechaun in space. Like, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys know the answer to this, shoot it in the comments below. But how many actual Leprechaun films are there? Last time I checked, I think there was like 5 or 6. Because I know Warwick Davis is just, he holds that whole franchise down. Like, that's his bread and butter right there.
That and his Star Wars cameo.
Exactly. We know him for Willow, but he makes his bread and butter off Leprechaun, man. He hopes to God every year they make a new one. So I just got to go not with any one in particular, but as a whole. I think they're amazing films, and they're just awesome done. And I'm a practical effects guy, and for the makeup and all of those, that's the best thing to me.
Definitely.
So what about for you? What was your number 4?
So for my number 4, I'm going with The Sixth Sense. You said you're more of like a hack and slash kind of horror movie. For me, I like ghosts, thrills, suspense, and the twist in The Sixth Sense is legendary.
It is.
Like
the twist.
You didn't even see it coming. Like it literally was just like the most legendary twist in cinema history.
It was.
I just found out Vincent Gray is actually Donnie Wahlberg.
Really?
Yeah, the dude that kills Bruce Willis.
The patient.
Yeah, he had to lose 43 pounds for that movie. It's actually part of a 3-movie deal Bruce Willis had to do with Disney and Disney made that movie. The executive that bought the film script for that for $2 million was fired because he didn't consult anybody. He's like, yeah, Disney wants to do horror. But Bruce Willis had beefed another movie he was producing and starring in called Broadway Brawler. And it cost Disney nearly $20 million. So he ended up doing Armageddon, this movie, and The Kid, which are all pretty much really
Kid's
good.
A solid one.
They're all good additions to his career. So, I mean, he took some lemons and made lemonade out of that.
I guess so, man.
I mean, they're all really good movies. But The Sixth Sense really, to this day, like if I feel like it get cold around me inexplicably, I'm assuming that there's a ghost. And I don't even believe in ghosts.
I talk to dead people.
And that line was quoted in movies at school. Just where you never hear it now, but that line was legendary.
That's fair.
I see dead people.
You know what? And it is. Like Bruce Willis, that brought me back to the Bruce Willis ring right there. Was Die Hard always had me, but this I didn't know he had those other acting chops. And I remember thinking the whole time, it's the kid. The kid. Oh, the kid's the ghost. Man, I was mistaken.
Yeah, they actually had not initially planned for Haley Joel Osment to do the role. It would have been Michael Cera. Or not, he had auditioned for it, but he did a more upbeat take on it instead of Haley Joel Osment did Crying. Which worked for him.
Because when I think of Michael Cera, I think of the Bloom son from Arrested Development. So I always I picture from Superbad. Just super uncomfortable, probably with some schmedium pants on and maybe a little coiffed hair. It's hard for me to imagine him all that.
Imagine him saying, "I see dead people."
Yeah, I see dead people. Oh, I don't know. That one's hard for me to sink my teeth into that one.
I almost want to see it, even though I know it would have been terrible.
That'd be so bad. I might want to watch it.
It was real similar to an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode also, where the character didn't know he was dead, even though the only person that talked to him was his sister, and at the end he finds out that he's dead too.
I'm trying to remember. What was the title of that book? If you guys remember what the name of that Goosebump book was.
No, it was an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
Oh,
so yeah, if you know the name of the episode, throw it in the comments down below.
Yeah. All right, so now let's boomerang back to our number 3 spot here for our top Halloween movies, our top horror movies of the 90s. And I'm going with an unconventional one, but I'm going 13 Ghosts.
I love 13 Ghosts. That's a great one.
I do too. I can't not. Even if it was a horrible movie in itself, Matthew Lillard to me is a redeeming quality in it. He's an amazing actor. And then you've got Tony Shalhoub in it, and Elizabeth Shannon in it.
Oh, I forgot she was in
it. I can't think of the young actor that played the son, but they were the first trio of Middle Eastern Americans to be starring in a film. So that made an all Middle Eastern trio cast, making up the majority.
Love Tony Shalhoub from Monk.
Yeah, and there's so many, when you do the behind the scenes stuff with them, there's so many good things. The guy that played the Juggernaut, it took him 5 hours to get into his costume and then 3 hours to get out of it.
Oh, jeez.
So
I could never sit still for any of that makeup stuff.
So he had easily 16-hour days, and then the guy that played the Hammer didn't even get the part. The guy that originally got it just never showed up, so he was working as part of the cast, and they asked him if he wanted the part after that because he had already auditioned. So they put him into the movie.
It would have been his big break into Hollywood too. He'd be starring in movies now.
Well, and then I don't know, it might be before our time, but the original 13 Ghosts, I think it was in 1930, 1940, was an amazing film. So to get Vincent Price, the late Vincent Price, back in that film for a little starring role, a little Easter egg for people, was a big thing because he was a huge part of the original 13 Ghosts.
Matthew Lillard carried that movie as far as I'm concerned.
Totally.
He's such a great actor. Yeah, he definitely. He's the most memorable part of that movie.
I will argue that man carries any movie that he's in, from this to Scream to SLC Punk to anything. He
every movie
carries
he's in is gold.
Scooby-Doo. He carries Scooby-Doo, man.
Yeah, that's a great cast. I don't know why he doesn't get cast anymore, because he's a super underrated actor. He's really good. Even in that chick flick with Freddie Prinze Jr., Fever Pitch.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good. Or Summer Pitch.
Man. I don't know, man. I don't know. Zoinks.
So for my number 3, I'm going Silence of the Lambs. Solid pick. Jodie Foster's I'm not a big fan of her at all, let alone in that movie. But no, not a big fan of her. I feel like she was like a bumbling Southern accent, didn't work for me. But I actually liked the girl that played her in the sequel. If you remember the name of the actress who played her in Hannibal, shoot it in the comments down below. But I think the woman who did it in the sequel was better. Despite that, Anthony Hopkins destroyed that role. That role was made for Anthony Hopkins. He is just spine-tinglingly scary. Like, just his demeanor, the way he speaks, everything. And Sean Connery was originally planned to play that role. And that would have been, I would like to see that. Hello, Clarice.
Hello, Clarice.
Speaking of hello, Clarice, that's not actually the line he says. He says, good evening, Clarice.
Good evening, Clarice.
Good evening, Clarice.
Census man once tried to test me.
I think it's either Mandela effect, or I think Jim Carrey may have quoted it wrong in one of the Ace Ventura movies, or another actor, and that's why people are confused. But yeah, it's good evening, Clarice. That movie was kind of ahead of its time, I think. I remember there being a serial killer movie like that until
it really wasn't.
And like the psychological thriller, that one just upped the game.
When you're really looking at Silence of the Lambs as a whole, it really does tie into that whole psychological thriller side of it, and that's the greatest part of it. It ties in for people that like the crime dramas and the thrillers, the criminal investigative side. But then it was one of those first movies that took a villain, and by the end of it, you don't really hate Hannibal.
No, definitely not.
You definitely don't hate him. Like, I wouldn't mind having a
serial killer.
I wouldn't mind having a dinner party with him.
I feel like that's what started the whole like 48 hours crime, like detective. Everybody wants to know about serial killers. I think that may have been what sparked it.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bill in that movie. I don't remember his scenes as much as I do the scenes from Joe Dirt. If you told me to remember those scenes, I'd probably be telling you the scenes from Joe Dirt rather than
man.
It puts the lotion on its skin.
From everything, I can remember some of those scenes vividly. From the scene where Jodie Foster's character is in the kitchen with the lights off, and he has the night vision goggles. And he's just reaching out just a little bit to touch her, and then he doesn't. It's just so thrilling, and she's just looking around scared.
Thrilling.
Or even just the small things of her being in the hole with the dog, and then watching him freak out, and then you start finding out his intentions for everything.
That dog.
Of wanting to make an outfit out of his victims.
That dancing scene that he does wasn't in the script, and the director didn't actually even want to do it, but the actor fought for it and said that it showed how much more demented his character is, and I agree.
Definitely, because I tell you what, in the back of my brain's stuck, bong, 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 bong. So yeah, it definitely is ingrained in my memory there, good or bad. And look what it spawned. We got Red Dragon, we got Hannibal. I think the whole series as a whole is a great show. So I think hands down, it definitely deserves to be on this list.
Definitely. So what do you got for number 2?
Number 2 for me is, and this was a toss-up between my number 1 and my number 2. So my number 2 was Event Horizon.
I've never seen that.
That cast alone from Event Horizon was just amazing. And then The whole movie itself was a theatrical bust. It took $60 million to make, and it only made like 40 some. But saving grace was coming to VHS, and it became a cult classic.
That happened with a lot of
So
movies in the 90s.
if you haven't seen it, like a little premise is a spaceship warps away and then comes back, but it warped somewhere special, and the crew has to go and try and find out where did the spaceship go. And it's got Lawrence Fishburne in it, Sam Neill.
Solid.
And it's definitely in that realm of, my friend once described it the best way. It's Hellraiser in space, is exactly what it is. It deals with the torture, the psychological side, the mental, the physical. It is a brutal, brutal film to watch. And the ending, I feel, is probably one of the best endings in a horror movie I've ever seen. It's right up in there in my top 10. Like, I could pick it up today and still watch it, no problem.
See, now I want to watch it.
Yeah, and
Good Halloween choice.
if you've seen Event Horizon before, man, throw it down in the link, smash that like, slam that dislike if you hate it. But you know what? You give us a little bit of love, man. It's a little bit for you guys, but it's a huge thing for us. But Event Horizon was a big one for me, so that's what I got for my number 2. What about for you?
For my number 2, I chose The Haunting.
Okay.
It's contrary to popular belief, it's not a remake of the 1963 movie. They couldn't get the movie rights to it, so they weren't allowed to replicate a single shot. So they just took the original source book, which is The Haunting on Hill House, and then made an adaptation from that.
Okay.
Really good cast. You have Catherine Zeta-Jones, who ever since I saw her in Zorro's, I consider to me one of the most beautiful women on the planet. You have Liam Neeson, who ever since I think came out the same year, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, ever since he was Qui-Gon Jinn, he's been one of my favorite actors, and he's continued to kill it.
Solid.
And Owen Wilson, who brings the perfect amount of comedy. In scary movies, you need characters that bring the levity so that you get lulled into that sense of security so that you can get shaken right back out of it when the scares come.
Wow.
It's not your traditional scary movie into where it's not super scary, but for me, it was always one that I liked as a child. It scared me enough to where I always thought, I'm still scared of strings on any instruments to this day. I won't go near pianos or guitars because I feel like the string's going to snap and get me in the eye. And honestly, the house was the scariest part of that movie. So much so that even Catherine Zeta-Jones and Liam Neeson wouldn't film there at night.
Wow.
Yeah, and the creaks and groans you hear throughout the house were pre-recorded and then played during filming so that the actors you'd get their real reactions to the creepy things happening.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
That is really cool. Wes Craven was initially going to direct it, but he opted out for Scream, which is probably a better choice because he got a lot of sequels out of that, although I don't know if he directed those. And the original screenplay was written by Stephen King, but they changed it so much that by the time it came out, he demanded that his name not be on it.
Wow.
Which is crazy because there's been so many butcherings to his movies and adaptations, and he still lets his name be on it. There was one, I don't remember what book it was, but they took the title of his book and completely made a different movie out of it.
Well, I know he definitely, it's publicly known, like he hated the Shining. So when
Really?
Yeah, it's publicly known that he hated what the director did to Shining. So when they remade Doctor Sleep, the movie, that was his chance to kind of redo that ending because the movie ending for Doctor Sleep and the book ending don't line up. So it was a chance for him to go back to the Overlook Hotel and kind of redo some things that Stanley Kubrick screwed up, or he felt screwed up on the first one.
Man, who would say? Nobody's going to watch that movie and say that Stanley Kubrick messed it up. But I never actually read The Shining. So.
Oh, see, and that's the problem. The book Shining is amazing. Even the movie one is amazing, but
it's just not
the book Shining is not the same as the movie.
A good retelling. Well, unfortunately for Stephen King, that movie's probably remembered more than his book at this point.
Probably, definitely so.
So that's all our countdowns. We're down to our final number 1 spots. What do you got for number 1?
So for my numero uno, I'm going with something that's just been stuck in my brain ever since I heard it, was what's in the box? What's in that box? And I'm still curious. Well, I'm not curious. I know what's in that box. But I'm going 7. 7 is my numero uno pick for my top Halloween film for the 90s.
Considering you've kind of defended hack and slash typical horror movies this whole time. I'm surprised you're expecting Misery.
Well, even
Which I guess is still a thriller.
even Misery, was set a different stage for it with Kathy Bates' character. But 7 was just something that there were a lot of hack and slash ones in there, but in the 90s they were all sequels. Hellraiser, Friday the 13th, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare with Nightmare on Elm Street. So I wanted to do a different take on this, and 7 was definitely one of those ones. It was a hack and slash because those 7 deadly sins that he incorporated into that movie and the practical effects that they did there were amazing. And then anytime you get Morgan Freeman as we all know him as the voice of God, he's going to make something amazing. And then you pair him with Brad Pitt. That's even better. Like that duo right there. I'm surprised they didn't do something else together.
Yeah, their chemistry and their rapport on screen was really good. But I mean, they're both really good actors, consummate professionals. So.
Yeah, and then too, 7 was the first horror movie for me that the main hero, the female or the male, doesn't get something positive in the end. He survives, but he gets screwed over in every aspect.
Screwed.
It's a dark and depressing ending, that final shot. So it just really makes you think about something. Movie, for me, it changed the idea of how horror cliches are supposed to be. What about for you?
My numero uno, I chose Scream.
Nice.
I love Scream. I think it very much encapsulates the 90s in a horror movie. That movie was just, I wouldn't say it was groundbreaking, but it started a new wave of hack and slash thrillers in scary movies. The whole cast was really good. Nev Campbell was my first crush from the 90s. Everybody chooses the Pink Ranger. For me, it was Nev Campbell. You got Matthew Lillard, which we talked about how great he is. His role as one of the villains in the end was great. He crushed that role. David Arquette and Courtney Cox, both really good. Drew Barrymore was in that movie, and she was initially set to star as the movie, but she chose and asked the director to be the one killed off in the beginning, so that you draw people in with these big names. Nobody's going to expect the big name to be killed off at the very beginning of the movie. So that was great, and that was her idea. She chose to take a smaller role for the sake of her craft, which I think is amazing. It was originally going to be titled Scary Movie, which I think is perfect. That's just on the nose.
Oh God!
But and that's probably why they chose that movie, the name for that title. But the killer in that movie was so easily avoidable in almost every instance. He's not superhuman. Like, somebody should have just punched him or hit him with something hard enough times, and I think that started the trope of leaving killers, hit him once and bounce, don't make sure he's dead. But that movie was aware of and made fun of all the different scary movie tropes while still utilizing them. Like Jamie Kennedy's character talked about it, the steps to the horror movie genre, and they went through those steps in that movie. He was another good addition to that movie. But yeah, that movie started a bidding war for the script that ended up getting to Dimension Films for $400,000, which was pretty big for a scary movie script at the time.
Wow. You know what? I got to go on the opposite. I'm not a huge fan of Scream, but the two saving graces that I've got it. Hey, yeah, if you want to punch this face right now, slam that dislike, man. But if you want to help me not get punched in the face, hit that dislike too.
We'd rather him not get punched in the face.
But no, the two saving graces for me really are Matthew Lillard and Wes Craven. Other than that, I'm not a huge Courtney Cox fan. I'm not a huge Nev Campbell fan. I love me some Drew Barrymore.
How do you not love Nev Campbell? What is wrong with you?
Just not a big fan of hers. She always was in constant neck pain all throughout Scream, man. She carried that thing all the way through. But no, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't need to be told what the rules to a horror movie are, and let's play off them. I believe treat your audience smarter than they are. Don't treat them as like they're dumb or anything.
Scream definitely treated the audience like a bunch of idiots. Wes Craven's seen as such a genius, but the movie, as much as I love it and it's at the top of my list, it falls short on a lot of filmmaking critique areas. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie, and it's slightly based on a series of real killings in Florida, student killings in the 1990s.
Really?
Yeah, I found that out. shortly before filming, so you get that little nugget of knowledge. But I mean, honestly, it also birthed one of the greatest parody comedies of all time in Scary Movie.
I see, and that's kind of cool. I didn't know that it was based off of any type of reality. So I can always appreciate that when they bring something real life into our world.
Oh, definitely.
So that's cool. If you guys agree with what we threw out here right now with our top 5 horror movies from the 90s, go ahead and throw a comment down below.
Let's see your top 5. Let's see what you think was the top 5 horror movies from the 90s. Let us see in the comments.
Yeah. Either agree, disagree. You guys let us know, man. You got the final choice here. But so this is Vader Face.
Jay Boogie.
Hey, we're going to be checking out with you guys here today. If we don't talk to you guys again, have a happy Halloween, man.
Adios.